Sit back, relax. It's a musical chat. We can all get along if we just sing this song. This versus that.
Hello, and welcome back into another edition of This versus That, where we break down today's music, yesterday's music, and anything in between. What it was like, what happened, what it's like now. This is your host, Mr. Michael Leopold.
And that, my friends, is your other host, Mr. Bill Forness.
TVT. We like acronyms around here. TVT. Hey, this was a great week for matchups. This was bands that started one way, morphed into another via either firing some folks.
Unfortunate demises.
It can happen.
Yeah.
It can happen. And this was just a few. I mean, because there are so many stories of these things, but these were some. We'll probably end up redoing this one again with another 5 or another 10 group. How do you say that? Another 5 with the other 5
it'd be about
in.
10. Yeah, who knows?
10
but
bands,
but there's plenty to go through because the bands evolve, and because they're forced to. You know, whether artistic differences or untimely deaths or whatever, they have to evolve into the next stage if they're going to keep that together, especially if there's something special there, which I think all these bands had, that became something significant out of something that caught fire but didn't have what it took to kind of.
And no one wants to become non-relevant.
Right.
You know, they want to stay relevant, and sometimes they got to try again. Maybe they get some push from the record label, maybe fans or something. Hey, you're still relevant. Keep going.
Right.
Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it don't. Hey, let's get with this first one where it did. Joy Division, or what it became later, is a band called The New Order.
Correct. I actually think that's funny that you said that. When they first did adopt that new name, they called The New Order, and then they dropped that "the" because there was some connotation of some right-wing, Nazi stuff potentially, and that was not their intention.
Right.
But
and I have it written as New Order, but I remember it being The New Order. I remember it.
Yeah. Well, they kind of, in deference to their former lead singer, Ian Curtis, who was the lead singer of Joy Division, and he was much more gothy, more post-punk kind of vibe, so you've got the Sex Pistols and the Clash and that all coming in this late 70s when Joy Division comes out, and they're kind of taking a little bit another route, so it's got like this dancey but moody emo kind of vibe with his more dark goth lyrics, and he was struggling with depression. He was struggling with drinking.
To me, it did not like New Order.
No, definitely not. But you can hear some stuff when they in there later, like if you hear Last Transmission and God, what's the other one that it's right on the tip of my tongue and I can't even say it, but like I can hear the beginnings. A Ceremony was one that actually New Order ended up doing as well, their own version of it. But Ceremony was one that was when they were kind of leaning more toward that dancey crowd. And it actually led to a movie, if you heard, called 24-Hour Party People. If you ever get a chance to watch that, that's a trip. It's a kind of loosely autobiographical about the whole Ian Curtis death and them becoming New Order and this whole music scene that started to come out of Manchester, in that area of the UK. But, it's funny, New Order definitely became lighter, more airy, more dancey. But you could still hear guitar riffs and especially the bass lines from Peter Hook, who was in both bands, that deliver on that transition, I guess. And I think long term they probably went to a better place. They certainly have had an unbelievable career. They just wrapped up or are in the process of wrapping up in October a North American tour, their first one in I don't know how long, with the Pet Shop Boys opening for them. And would have loved to have gone out to the Hollywood Bowl to see them. But for me, the origin, there's something about Ian Curtis and that sound that I can still hear traces of, the ghosts almost of it, that I still love. And while I don't think I'm in the popular opinion, I'm going to say Joy Division kind of pulls at my musician love interest as opposed to dance. I love the Dance of New Order, and it was my college days, and without a doubt, big impact on me musically. But I like the original.
Yeah, 'cause the audience here definitely, I mean, it was fairly overwhelming.
Yeah,
New Order. But I think New Order definitely was the more, I mean, look, Gina Hart said, love New Order, don't know who the other band is, right? So that's what happens.
Right.
Or then you got Rex Torbert who said, totally unfair. So you got both ends of that spectrum, right?
Right.
This is unfair. To a degree it is. Because it's the same, but it's different circumstances.
And they're both great in their own right. That's the cool thing about this particular one was both of them were really good bands. Had Ian Curtis remained alive and they stayed and evolved, would they have become New Order like New Order is today? Probably not.
Probably not.
But they would have evolved in their own way. And what I liked about, I think is the edge. Like New Order is it's not edgy.
No.
And I'm not saying that to dismiss, because they were in alternative music and that alone is edgy, but inside their own genre they were not, where Ian Curtis and Joy Division certainly were edgy. They were a little darker, and that pulls at something in me.
I got you.
You know?
Well, I can't go with so I researched some of Joy Division's music. I honestly just didn't know nothing about them. I knew much more about New Order.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and so where I'll just stand with this, which is much more lies in the fact of New Order to me had the better melodies, the hooks.
Yes.
Joy Division was more, when we say alternative, and there's a lot of different definitions of that word, and you could throw a lot of different bands in that mix. Some of the issues I have with alternative is sometimes that also means alternative to having good melodies, good hooks. You know, it kind of gets on the obscure side, which is cool.
Right. It's
cool and it's good, and there's a place for that. When it comes to these two right here, I'm glad that they did what they did in New Order, because I think a lot of people enjoy it. I enjoyed more of that melody than
Love Will Tear Us Apart. That's the other song that I know that was pretty big by Joy Division that had a
hook.
Yeah, had a hook.
That
exactly.
had a hook. See, and I didn't even realize that was Joy Division.
Yeah.
So, but that's a hook.
And that's why I said you could see them starting to evolve, and because those were the songs right before he died. You know, the earlier stuff was very post-punk. You know what I mean? What you're talking about, we're not very melodic.
Right.
You know, but you could start to see him growing. You know,
so he could have been in one of our past episodes on the Gone Too
Soon, right? For sure. And he always had a different voice than Sumner, you know, Bernard Sumner, who is now the lead singer for New Order. Totally different vibe, which changed the sound, you know. But Peter Hook, those bass lines that New Order is famous for, you know, that whole era, like The Cure has similar, you know, you can see some very similar sounds coming out of those guys. But no, that was a great. I thought that was a good one to start with for the week for sure.
All right. Next, we had Camper Van or Cracker.
Yeah, Camper Van Beethoven or Cracker. Dave Lowry, the obvious leader of both bands, and the creative kind of push for both these bands. Obviously, fell in love with Camper Van Beethoven down at Mizzou. Man, they played the Blue Note when I was at Mizzou once a semester for at least 2 years while I was there. And all my fraternity brothers, we were big Blue Noters and used to go and see these guys. They had an interesting, eclectic sound. I don't think that they had completely figured out who they were, but they had that gal on the violin that gave them a certain, there was almost like a folksiness amidst a little bit of ska and a little bit of country, twangy and rock and roll, you know. So it was kind of this melting pot of indie music.
Yeah, it gave me an indie jam band feel almost.
Yeah.
Like
For sure.
Yeah,
They could go off.
I watched that whole. There's a video on YouTube of them at Mississippi Nights.
Oh, nice.
And
Great
there's
venue.
an entire concert that was shot there, and that's exactly what I got from. To me, it's really different. Cracker and Camper Van are very different.
Yeah, so Cracker then comes along, right? The camper shuts down that for whatever reason they can't go on together. That's usually artistic differences, or somebody leaves and wants to do something else or is not feeling it.
Yeah.
So
not enough money.
Right. So Lowry, gets his thing on, and I think this is where he finds a stride. He kind of starts to recognize who he is and what his sound is, and they start to deliver. That first album that they dropped with Happy Birthday and Teenage, what was that called? Teen Angst, I think it was called. Yeah, that first hit off that. I remember when the Point first started in St. Louis, that this album was right on the heels of that. And man, I was into it and really glad because I loved Lowry's voice. I thought he had a good way about it. And he's kind of funny. You know what I mean? He can be tongue in cheek when he sings some of the lyrics and the stuff he writes. And then, you go to Low and Eurotrash Girl.
Yeah.
The guitar playing in Eurotrash Girl is some of my favorite stretches of guitar solos. It hits me in a place. I just close my eyes and I know every lick. I can't play it, but I know every note in my head, like verbatim, if that even can be a thing with music. I know where that song's going. That song was fantastic. It was funny. My kids they were little when I was jamming that album. And that was like a hidden track. It was like number 69 on a CD.
I remember when
15.
that was the big thing.
That was the thing, right? The hidden track, right?
Yeah.
And my kids thought it was "You're a Trash Girl," not Euro. You're a trash girl. And they would sing that, and I would just crack up.
You're a trash. I'll never listen to that song the same. Oh my God, that's planted.
It is hilarious.
Who do you got? I mean, what? You saw Camper Van live.
It's so funny. So many of my fraternity brothers are in this thing, and they're loving on Camper. And I do. I have Fatima, Take the Skinheads Bowling. But for me, I think Cracker's my jam. I think Cracker is where I like to live with Dave Lowry.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I like I said, I watched the whole thing. I haven't seen them live. Neither band. But I did watch that, and then I watched some of Cracker's live, and I already knew Cracker's music. I've grown up listening to that stuff in the 90s. And so I got to go with that. I think it has a lot to do with tones, sounds. We had a discussion about maybe Camper Van was still sort of like the trial period.
Yeah.
We're going to try these different things out. We're going to see what is going to make this work. Eventually, I think we see that the elimination of some members one way or the other. Cracker comes. Now you got some maybe they got a producer who said, look, we need to guitar tone this thing. This needs to be in the front. Let's get some strong songs. What do we got lyrically? And then boom, boom, bang, there you go, and you start to get some really good cuts. I go Cracker.
Yeah, I'm with you on that overall. I just, and you could hear Aya Fatima, Take the Skinheads Bowling, that those were moving more like Cracker anyway. That sounded like you could have put those songs on a Cracker album, the early one, and it would have been an easy transition. Whereas opposed to Matchstick Men and a few of those other ones with that heavy violin and stuff, it just... Right. It was cool. It was cool, but it was just out there. It was not as tight.
Yeah. All right. And it looked like, from what I see, only by one did Cracker
split right down the middle almost.
It's pretty much split down the middle.
Not surprised.
Okay. And next we got Yaz or Erasure.
This one got a lot of play. At least on mine. I was people came to play on this one, and Yaz was coming out in the early '80s. Before I got to college, I was probably still in hell. It was before I was in high school or just getting into high school when Situation came out and Only You. and I probably didn't even hear these guys until my older sister Ellen came back from Mizzou. She's 5 years older than me, and brought Yaz back. Yeah, that was kind of cool, having older sisters bringing music that your friends had never heard back to the house, and starting to introduce them. You know, I got introduced to so much, but Yaz was one that was playing in my household when I was pretty young, coming up, and so dig them. Loved Erasure when I got to Mizzou. They were definitely all over our mixtapes at the parties we'd throw at our house, and it drew girls in. I mean, big time for dancing at the house, and we had great mixtapes at the house down at Mizzou, and Erasure was all over it, and so was New Order, to as a matter of fact. But I think Alison Moyet for me is the difference. Alison Moyet in Yaz has a voice that can do so much, and it's deep and it's rich and it's strong, and she can sing anything just about. And I know you were sharing some stuff. I'm looking forward to you talking about how you felt about the difference. But I got to go with Yaz on this one. I just really think that overall they were more dynamic.
I do too. Her voice is basically the point for me, and actually, and they did win by, you know, they had an extra 10 votes. It looks like over Erasure, and I think it's her. I think it's her voice. I think you said it just right. She could do some things, and one of the things I noticed was how she could be singing these operatic style lines and then stop and almost talk a part of a verse, and then end it out with another part of this operatic sort of singing voice.
Yeah.
That's not easy stuff to do. It sounded neat, especially with that type of music going on in the background, which sometimes to me, and not to throw it under the bus, but sometimes you could have pictured it in a Nintendo 64 Zelda game.
Right.
You know, it's like, what's going on here? This sounds like in
the 80s, there almost seemed to be a formula.
I know,
right? Like if you listen to soundtracks for movies and different things, I know you brought this up.
That's right.
But there's this almost where you got to have a saxophone and a synthesizer.
Yeah, right.
And maybe those kind of those funky drums that came out.
Drums,
the right?
electric drums,
right?
Uh-huh.
And so forth. So they were one of the leaders out the gate, I think, with this stuff that a lot of people started to copy. That gave the sound almost like you could do a lot of just instrumental versions of the music that they were making and drop it in the background of any movie on a montage scene or hustle and bustle scene in the city, modern day, giving it that new wave kind of flair,
right?
You know,
and that's the thing. So I have the song Situation, which has that synth keyboard going on, and I heard that and thought, oh man, they must have ripped that off from the
Beverly
Hills Cop, sort of that thing that like flows throughout the entire movie. That whole
whenever Axel Foley's moving around, right,
right,
when they're on the case,
right, and it kind of sounded like that, and I thought, oh, that's a ripoff. Wrong. And I used to play in a variety group called Seabox Prophets, 2006 through 2009, and I used to be the opener for the dueling pianists at the Jive and Whale in Maplewood, Missouri, and in St. Peters, Missouri. And there was a guy on that circuit, and he was his name was Richard, and I can't remember his last name, but he wrote that.
Oh,
he
really?
wrote that for Beverly Hills Cop. That was his big claim to fame. And then he started to be a circuit dueling pianist during that time, which you make really good money doing that sort of thing.
So maybe Richard was listening to some Yaz when he
it
got
was
inspired.
The other way around. Yeah, and it turns out that's 82.
Right.
Beverly Hills Cop doesn't come out till 84,
right.
So he's probably writing that sometime in 83 or somewhere in there. There's gonna be a blurred line in there somewhere, but yeah, that's some interesting stuff. I dig it.
That's funny that you mentioned blurred lines. That
blurred lines. Right. I did.
That's another ripoff song, right?
Here we go. Yeah, All right, so I think we got the clear cut, and I think we both agree.
So real quick, palate cleanser. You threw another great meme up because you were inspired, I think, by the Cracker and the Camper Van
Watching the
about Mississippi Nights.
Yeah.
So you threw up Mississippi Nights.
I did.
Who'd you see there? You know,
Who did you see at Mississippi Nights?
Right. And
boy, a lot of people saw some folks.
They came
didn't
strong.
they?
It's funny. So I threw it on my Facebook page, and I tried to get the local flavor. I wanted to get, because my wife and I used to hit that place every weekend when we were dating. That was our spot. I was even under 21, getting in that place.
Yeah.
And we would go see The Unconscious. And we would go see Big Fun. And we would see, who else? Fragile Porcelain Mice, The Eyes, which became Pale Divine. And the lead guitarist for Pale Divine went on to play with the Psychedelic Furs.
And then Guns N' Roses.
And then Guns N' Roses. That's right, Guns N' Roses. So there's so many great memories there. And then everybody just kind of weighed in with, the Chili Peppers and REM and the Smithereens and Midnight Oil and just endless. That place was so money.
It had that perfect. I think the capacity was around 850. So,
Okay.
I mean, what a perfect way to pack people in and have that perfect energy, because it's not so big to where you feel removed. Because almost anywhere in there, you felt like you were right there with them.
Yes. I remember watching Sunvolt from all the way in the back and just feeling like I was sitting on stage with Jay Farrar. I mean, it was powerful.
I saw too many bands. Probably my favorite one there, though, was Faith No More, and that was a really good show. But I performed there as well a handful of times, and even recorded a live album there with
very
a band
cool.
in the 90s I was with called Clear Glass Religion.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's New World Spirits.
I played a show there with New World Spirits.
There's just so many great local bands, and there's a bunch of guys that used to play in those bands that have all gotten together and started a band called the John Hughes Experience.
Oh, yeah.
With Kevin Gagnapane and those boys, and the
Michael
lead singer of
Shear.
The Eyes. Yeah, Michael, and they are amazing.
You've seen them.
I've seen them live. Yeah, I saw
haven't
them out
got
in
to
St.
see 'em
Charles at the Diamond Hall, that new place out there. And, it's not a bad venue. I don't get out to St. Charles for much, but I'll go see those guys, And do yourself a favor. Check those guys out for sure. Mississippi Nights, I mean, rest in peace.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's been a venue as good as that. I know the Del Mar Hall has tried to kind of, and I dig that place too.
Yeah.
But it's not quite the same.
Mississippi Nights. Yeah, it might need another 20 years of some, I don't know, some seasoning. I'm not sure, but Mississippi Nights was one of my dream places to perform, and I got to do it. And the pageant then became the one after that, and I got to do 2 shows there. So, the next is the Fox Theater.
Fantastic. So getting back into it.
All right. A couple more. Let's go with this one. Blur.
Yeah.
Or the Gorillaz, which I didn't know that band morphed into them. It was you told me about this, and I thought, wow, that's where Gorillaz came from. I didn't know.
Yeah, so Blur, obviously big in the UK. I mean, just but didn't get a lot of play over here. Not everybody knew them unless you were kind of into that kind of scene. If you were tracking the Stone Roses, and if you were tracking Oasis out of the UK, obviously Oasis blew up really big, but if you were into that kind of scene coming out of Manchester, again, another big sound out of that area of the world. What is it about the UK that do they just bring such a unique flavor in their own sound?
It's happened in multiple genres.
Yes, multiple generations too. And Blur was one of those bands, and real intelligent, real kind of has a punk type vibe to it, but also it was almost like a 90s version of like PIL or just. So when they broke up, they didn't last. They have a great song that I love. It's called Park Life, and it's got a lot of speaking.
Park Life,
yeah. Park Life, great song. And in fact, there's a Norwich soccer team that has their coach is named Farke. He's a Farke, but they've kind of shortened it to Fark, and they they sing to him "Fark Life," and it's hilarious. They just change the lyrics and they create a whole song for their soccer team.
Right.
If you ever get a chance, but Gorillaz is interesting to me because out of the gate, that's not what I would normally like, but little by slowly, and I like it when bands do this, they start to grow on me.
Mm-hmm.
And they did did a song with Aries and Peter Hook from New Order, or called Aries with Peter Hook from New Order, that it's like morphing the perfect of Blur with the perfect of New Order, and just going, we just had a baby, and it's the most beautiful thing in the world.
That's cool. That's cool when folks do that sort of thing. I really like the Gorillaz for the animation factor. All this anime surrounded with them. I love that.
The branding,
idea.
yeah.
I love that branding. I mean, that kind of hooks me in right away. And I like the beats. I like the direction of the feel of the Gorillaz more than Blur.
Yeah,
personally.
right on. It's multimedia almost altogether. There's this artistry to them that's not just in the music. They're expressing it in this other way that kind of takes it to a new level. And I don't know that I see anybody else doing it.
Not really
quite like that.
No.
Where when
nothing
you see
I can
that,
think
it's
about.
like seeing graffiti.
Right.
When you know the artist, you know what I mean? They have a thing, like you see an album cover or you see that like you said, an animation of that, and you know exactly who it is. There's some genius to that.
There is. It's almost like taking that animation world from what Kiss did in the 70s, where they were characters on stage all made up, and you didn't know who they were.
Right.
Same sort of vibe. I remember seeing them, and I was like, I don't know who these guys are.
Right.
Till you told me that, and then I was like, but I never really researched it either. But I was like, oh, so that's okay.
It's funny. I was telling you beforehand,
sense.
and I the difference in our age, is maybe not quite 10 years, but it's almost generational. Like my friends and that, we all like Blur better, and all of our kids, or even 10 years younger, like Gorillaz better,
right, right.
And it's what you know, right?
Right.
Sometimes it's what you heard first, because you own those bands. They're yours. They're almost like your secret. And when they get out and everybody gets to hear them and enjoy them, there's something selfish.
I know.
You
lose. You go, and then you almost turn your back on them.
Right, exactly.
I know it.
And
it happens a lot.
I never want to do that, but there's something. Blur was mine. Gorillaz, you know what I mean?
So I
I'm
guess
going with Blur.
You're going with
Yeah,
Blur.
I'm
I'm
going
going
with
with Godzilla's and
Godzilla's.
sorry, that's a different band. It's that new movie that came out. It's got my head twisted. The Gorillaz, I really dig. And all right, so we ended out, and this probably got the most response.
I'm glad you saved this one. I'm glad you saved this one
for
Friday.
I mean, this was nice for a Friday topper. Van Halen. Basically, what we're saying is David Lee Roth fronting Van Halen, or is it Sammy Hagar fronting Van Halen? Okay, Van Halen or Van Hagar?
Yeah,
right?
Van Hagar. So obviously that name was thrown out there. It makes all the sense in the world, but that wasn't the band's name.
No,
but that's how you differentiated them,
that's
right?
That's how you do it.
And you talked about them. And it's funny, with us being from the St. Louis area, Sammy's got big ties, the Red Rocker here. So I know that there's some fans out there that really loved that merging, especially if it meant that they could hang on to Van Halen for longer. Because when it broke up, that was one of the big breakups of a band, where it was all kind of drama and public, and it was almost like a soap opera, and people didn't want to believe it, right? I mean, nobody wanted to believe that Diamond Dave and Eddie were gonna actually break up. It was too good of a thing. There was nothing like it, right? I mean, David Lee Roth's vocals and those screams and that energy, and then with the guitar playing of Eddie, and
that came out of nowhere.
Unbelievable. And they just kept getting better and better. I mean, they had a couple little slips up, but I mean, as far as some direction on some of those albums, but I mean, every album had just some gems, and some of the albums were great top to bottom. And for me, I cannot hear The Strange from Panama and not roll my windows down and turn that thing up as loud as it can go. I never felt that way with Van Hagar. Something changed, and I'm not saying it was it was bad. It just wasn't the same. And for me, it's almost like Blur in the sense that I didn't want to move on with the new group. It just didn't seem right to me,
Mm-hmm.
But for all my friends who love Sammy and love Van Halen and thought, hey, this is the best of both worlds, no pun intended.
Yeah, best
Pun
of both
intended.
worlds.
Right? That they were able to continue to move along with them and enjoy what Sammy did bring, which was some guitar playing and some musical talent and a whole new sound, which I actually think was good in the sense that it gave them an identity that was different. They weren't trying to just try to recreate what was already there.
I agree with that, and I'm glad they did it. I mean, it was cool. There were definitely songs. Pound Cake is one that I thought was really cool. Best of Both Worlds. Summer Nights, Hot Summer Nights. What a great tune off of 5150. And who can forget what is it? Love Comes Walking In. That was like Sammy Hagar that strong vocal.
Yeah. Yes, he had good vocals.
But the thing of it is, and let's go with some of the comments. Chandler Evans says, I'll tell you, this is the ultimate matchup. He says, in my opinion, DLR was an incredible entertainer. Sammy, the better musician. Now, that's what you're talking about. As much as I love a good show, I do appreciate their musical output and quality of craft. And not having any real bias one way or the other, I got to go with my musical preference, Van Hagar. Okay. And that's pretty interesting. Tony Campanella, I have to go with the DLR era. They were fun. The playing and tones on those records are the best. After DLR split, Sammy started writing about love. I don't want that emotion in my Van Halen. I want the party. Boy, there's something to be said about that, too. And someone else, I think it was Austin Sprague, said, let's be real, Sammy Hagar had to sing David Lee Roth songs. David Lee Roth never had to sing a Sammy Hagar song.
So my buddy Bill Luby, he comes in with, hey, being from St. Louis, I've been a Sammy Hagar fan since 1979. He said, got turned on to Sammy's old band Montrose around the same time. He said, great stuff. He said, but for me, I have to give the nod to the original Van Halen. There's just something about it.
Just something about it. Yeah. And I agree. And I really wish I could have seen Eddie Van Halen play live. It's just another one of those things where you think maybe someday, you think maybe somehow, and then it just doesn't happen, and then all of a sudden you hear that news and you go, wow, well, that never got to happen.
Yeah, that is something that I don't know that we even, talked about too much with the Gone Too Soons, because some of the ones we talked about were so long ago that maybe we would have never had a chance. But I mean,
wasn't even born.
There's guys that I regret, not seeing, like Prince, like David Bowie. I regret not seeing Van Halen.
Yeah,
obviously, that I thought that there would always be a chance. You know what I mean? It's like the Rolling Stones. They just played here.
They just played.
And I heard that they played one of their best concerts that they've ever played here.
Yeah.
And that's from friends of mine that are fans for decades, that have seen many shows and said this was one of the best they ever went to. So, get out there and see these bands if you get the chance. I mean, life changes on a dime
fast, and then time goes by and it just kind of slips away. But hey, I am definitely going with Van Halen, and I even like David Lee Roth's solo stuff, and I like Sammy Hagar solos. On one note, though, did you ever hear the story about how they asked Sammy Hagar to join?
No, I'd love to hear that.
Because
I remember when they played that first song, the big release that it was on the radio. I mean, everybody in high school, we were all in our cars waiting for them to play that song on Keishi.
Yeah.
And it was like a big, like a world premiere, type thing. So I'd love to know how that worked out.
It was something like this, and I'm just paraphrasing. Yeah. But he had the song I Can't Drive 55.
Right.
They had a police officer pull him over and go up to the car, and Sammy's all mad and upset, and he's like, I need you to get out of the car, and he goes and he puts him in the car or something like that, and then he gives him the CB radio, and it's Eddie. I'd like to know if you'd like to join Van Halen.
No way. Had they been talking about it, or was this just literally?
No, they never.
Like,
they didn't speak. That's how they asked him to join the group.
And does he say yes in that moment, or does he go, "I got to think about it"?
I don't remember I don't remember how that went down.
Because
I'd
could
have
you
to look
imagine?
it up.
I mean, just think about that. So first of all, you got to jump into a band that is as iconic as they are. You, in your own right, have your own thing going, and so are you going to leave that identity to become? And you know that there's this history and this guy, and the first songs you're going to have to sing after you drop your own album are all the old standards.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
You're not getting away from that.
No way. And so that takes a lot of. I can't imagine it was a yes on the spot, or if it was, did he have any second thoughts? Did he have, and I'm sure that these answers have been out there. I've just never pursued them, but it's fascinating to me if it was done like that. Does he just jump in with both feet and go, yeah? Oh,
right. I bet he was laughing.
Frick, yeah.
He was probably so glad that he wasn't getting in any trouble with the law. He's probably just laughing and I'm still so Eddie could have rolled up in a car behind him and they could have said, "Hey, let's go talk." I don't know.
Right.
I'd have to look into it. But
That's a good story though.
Just that happening is just brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, great, man.
Yeah, this was a good one.
This was a great one. That's
Yeah.
a great way to end, and I think that we both agree that it's the original Van Halen, and so does the audience too. I don't know if I said that, but I mean by a huge margin, almost an extra 25 people picked.
You can't be surprised
Van
by
Halen.
that.
I was a little bit
Were
though.
you?
I honestly,
That
man,
it was a blowout.
That it was
Yeah.
that much of a blowout.
I just
I mean,
there's something about the magic of the original that can't be recreated.
This will be the last thing I'll say about what I think happened, and especially in the sound of the group. It sounded like someone kind of just put a blanket over them a little bit. After, I mean, in technical terms, it sounded like they started to put a gate on all the.
It wasn't as raw.
instruments. No,
Yeah.
It was very produced. It became very nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
It wasn't like
very radio
It
friendly.
wasn't on the edge, man.
Right.
It wasn't like, what is happening here?
Like little guitars. I think about that song, that intro, and then that. I mean, to me, that's like
Unchained, all them big guitar riffs, and then everything sort of settled in and got real.
Yeah.
And that was cool too, though.
Yeah.
So, all right. Thanks a lot. We definitely appreciate you turning in. Make sure that you hit like, subscribe, find us on Spotify and subscribe. YouTube, hit the like button, the thumbs up. Let's subscribe to that. We're trying to build it. Anchor, if you'd like to listen to us. Facebook, thanks again. Tune in next time. Feel free to give us all your comments, feedback, whether you like the stuff, whether you don't. Give us a reason why. We'll talk about it. We'd like to talk about it with you.
And get out to see some live music. Get to those venues near you,
Yeah,
the Mississippi Nights. We need those venues. They need us to survive. And these bands out there putting their creativity and their heart and souls on the line. Get out there and support them.
I've been actually performing quite a bit here lately, and I haven't had a chance to get out and support my local brothers and sisters. Have you went and seen anyone?
Yeah, in the last 3 months, I've probably seen. I saw Squeeze at the pageant,
Nice.
and I saw Poi Dog Pondering over at the Del Mar Hall. And that was fantastic. That's the first time I've ever seen them. My wife and I were into them in the late '80s and '90s, and just I didn't realize that they had a following, almost like a Fish following. Much smaller, but people know every word, every song, and all these dances to the different songs, and they have a total engagement with the lead singer and some of the backup singers. They got like things that they do. It's almost like
Nice.
expectations and stuff. So that was kind of cool to see.
That's good.
And then locally, I've seen the John Hughes Experience with those guys that I was talking about before, who all played at Mississippi Nights back in the day. They got something. They're bringing a full 80s montage, and they knock it out of the park. I mean, their covers of Let's Dance by David Bowie.
Really? Yeah.
Rock, I mean, on point. And they do REM, they do The Cure. They do I'll Melt With You, Modern English. You know, they take you through that whole 80s kind of John Hughes movie vibe for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Please get out there and support the local venues, local music. Hey, man, thanks again for tuning in to another edition of This Versus
That. I'm Michael Leopold, and that's Bill Forness saying adios.
Be safe out there, guys.
This versus that. This versus that. Sit back, relax. It's a musical chat. We can all get along if we just sing this song. This versus that.